Hello, everyone. I hope you all are doing great. I would like to welcome you all to today's United Kingdom webinar on Unleashing Business Agility, how HR can foster enhanced performance. On behalf of Agile People Ops, me, Mariana, your host, would like to thank you all for joining us today. I would now like to introduce our United Kingdom country ambassador and speaker for today, Roxanne Allen. As an experienced people practitioner and leader with over a decade in HR and talent development, Roxanne specializes in driving innovation for enhanced employee experience and business success. Her journey into Agile began in 2017, where she applied lean principles in operations, transforming her approach to be human centered and output focused. Through roles in digital health and ongoing professional development, she has embraced Agile HR to improve effectiveness and communication, earning recognition as the APF Country Ambassador for the UK. She is committed to aligning people activities with operational goals, fostering a culture of empowerment, innovation, and continuous learning. Welcome, Roxanne. The stage is all yours.
Thank you so much, Mariana, and thank you for the introduction. So I will just share my screen. So hopefully you're all able to see that. And Mariana, will you be able to just keep an eye on the chat box for me as I'll have it minimized?
Yes, definitely. And we can
Awesome.
see
So
your
thank you,
screen.
everyone. Thank you. So thank you everyone for sharing your lunchtime if you're in the UK with me. You may notice that there is a slight slur in my speech. I promise you I am absolutely sober. I had some dental work done yesterday and it doesn't quite sit right and I didn't realise that until after I left. So hopefully I'm going to be as clear as possible. If you don't understand anything or you need me to repeat, just give us a shout and I'll say it again to be as clear as possible. So today's session is all about unleashing business agility and thinking about it from a people perspective. So how HR can foster enhanced performance. Before I jump into the agenda, I just wanted to see how familiar people were with business agility. If you could just type your answer in the chat, 1 being not at all, 3 a little, 5 you're already working in the space or you have done in a previous organisation, if you wouldn't mind. Okay, so we've got a 2 from Kaveri. I hope I said your name correctly. Any more for any more? Okie dokies, we'll move on then. So let me just pop that back on there. So for the agenda for today, we're going to focus on some key blocks. So we've got what is business agility. So I'm going to take you through some definitions and look at some resources. Then we're going to really deep dive. So we're looking at the 3 core areas that I believe HR can really drive the conversation around business agility. And then I'm going to share with you a tool that I found on the Agile Business Consortium that I think is amazing. I've shared with senior leaders, and then a case study that has been really insightful and great to see the journey around business agility and how this became a real focus of a people team to the point where they actually restructured around it. But first, so what is business agility anyway? Well, according to the Business Agility Institute, it's a set of organizational capabilities, behaviors, and ways of working that affords your business the freedom, flexibility, and resilience to achieve its purpose, no matter what the future brings. And there are a few words that really stick out to me as an Agile person, and I'm sure many of you on the call. Freedom makes you think of empowerment. Flexibility makes you think about autonomy, and purpose. Well, everything we do should stem from this and flow back to this, right? So what? What does any of that matter? Why does it matter? Well, we're in really challenging times, aren't we? So we've got market changes, increasing cost and competition, possibly decreased market share with product saturation, increasing manufacturing costs, inflation, skills gaps. There's all sorts of things that businesses are trying to navigate through all of this, which business agility can support. So the now what of it all is that we need to be innovative and adaptable to ensure our competitiveness and our survival. So to counter the challenges that I mentioned earlier, we need to leverage the collective intelligence and learning and focus on application and intentional effective action. That's a lot of words, isn't it? Effectively, adapt or die. So in short, business agility is a means to adapt to new circumstances and being ready when they occur. Some of you may or may not recognize this still. It's from the film Moneyball, and you see that it's Mr. Brad Pitt there. If you haven't seen this film, I would highly recommend it. It's really good for leadership and change transformation lessons, but also just a really good watch. It focuses on baseball and it is based on a true story. So just a quick overview, because I think it's a really good example. So the main character, played by Brad Pitt, is leading a team facing financial difficulties, and he joins forces with an economics graduate to use statistical analysis to evaluate and recruit new players to the team. So this was a new approach. Okie dokies, we're back on, people, we're back on. So I will start from the beginning of this slide, so apologies if you're hearing it for the second time. So in short, business agility is a means to adapt to new circumstances and being ready when they occur. So if you haven't watched Moneyball, I absolutely do recommend it for unofficial lessons around leadership, change and transformation within the sports space. So we're looking specifically here at baseball, and it is based on a true story. And a really quick overview of the film, because I think it's a great example of business agility in a very different context. So Brad Pitt is leading a team facing financial difficulties, and he joins forces with an economics graduate to use statistic analysis to evaluate and recruit new players. So this was a new approach. It wasn't necessarily widely accepted initially. However, it led to a 20-game winning streak. So a great example of adapting and being innovative to ensure survival. So I also wanted to share these two resources here that you will get the slides, you'll be able to do a bit of a deeper dive on. And as we go through the presentation, we'll pick out some themes as well. On the left-hand side, you'll see the Management 3.0 poster. So this is some great work coming out of Management 3.0. They focus on progressive leadership with a great toolkit that they have that stems from the principles of Agile. So empowering teams, constant learning, continuous improvement practices, all of that kind of stuff. You'll see that they have their own definition here, a couple of reasons why you would want to introduce business agility or mature your business agility practice, and some of the models that you can do to use that as well. On the right-hand side, you may recognize the styling of this poster, because the Agile HR poster was done by Dandy People as well, commissioned by Rena Hellstrom and Natal Dank. And there are actually some overhangs from the Agile HR poster. So we've got, on the people perspective side here, theory X versus theory Y of people. We also have the learning zone here as well. So the psychological safety matrix from Amy Edmondson included. On the right-hand side, we have it split out into budgeting and performance development. And as I said, we will pick up on some of these themes around OKRs, feedback, continuous learning, and so on. But both provide clear indicators and outcomes to enable and develop business agility. So we will explore some of these themes as we keep going. So how HR can be the driver of change when it comes to this conversation? Through my research, discussions with experts, and my own experimentation, I've come to realize that there are three kind of key buckets. It's a little bit inception, and you'll see as we go on why I say that. But the three buckets are process, as in operational process, talent, and culture. So when we're looking at processes, we need to ensure that we're enabling a psychologically safe environment so that teams can review processes together, that it's not just a top-down discussion, and that people feel free enough to have those conversations. When we're looking at talent, it's empowering talent across the whole business. So everyone is talent and required the right environment and support to achieve it. And I really like the Michael Jordan quote, everybody has talent, but skill takes hard work. And then we need to encourage an agile culture. So the behaviors and mindsets that underpins an agile culture. So we'll deep dive into process. So we're starting off with communication and transparency as that kind of bucket within a bucket. And I'm focusing here on time for quality thinking. And HR can help develop the foundational blocks to success around this through developing skills in learning agility, critical thinking, reflective practice, and communication. And we need to outline the importance of reflection for self-leadership as part of a learning culture. Sticking with communication and transparency, and we just kind of touched on it, psychological safety. So we need to make sure that we're developing managers who can foster a culture of psychological safety and do so within their own community of managers, but sort of managing up and down as well. So working across the whole business to co-create these processes and understand how value flows through the business. Within this, we also need to be thinking about our feedback culture and how we can make sure that it's built into the fabric of the business. You may want to look at different management cultures and styles. So from the Japanese management culture, there are nika boards, which essentially are happy sheets or doors that have smiley faces in a kind of rag kind of style. And that's updated by everyone who attends a meeting. After every interaction, it's reviewed by leaders and maybe as a team as a whole. Probably very useful when you're going through periods of change and you're wanting to see how a message has landed. Microsoft Viva Insights, if you have Teams, also has a similar mechanism where you can do it as an individual and update your sort of status, as it were, and you may be able to share that with a manager. The people team may be able to extract data from that and look at some reporting as well. So on to the business performance collaboration. So this was actually listed on the Dandy People poster and it's come up in lots of research and conversations, but this is bringing together finance, IT and HR. So they're a super group, a cross-functional team, the three-headed dragon if you're a Game of Thrones fan, and this enables that team of people to work holistically across the business, ensuring that all the projects are properly funded, the decisions are made with people at the centre, and they're appropriately resourced from an IT perspective. And this will come up again as we go through the case study. So this is interesting because the word obeya means something completely different in Jamaican culture. It's actually a very negative spiritual thing, but within the context of what we're looking at today, it is a visual management approach. So traditionally, it is a room that has your entire business strategy on it, and anyone can go into this room and have discussions and learn from the data that is included on there and do some problem solving, etc. So there are 4 quadrants of Obeya that cover 11 different principles. Because of time, we'll just go through the 4 principles. So we have mindset, alignment, workspace, and content. So when we're talking about mindset, people are coming together to learn and engage in continuous improvement. From an alignment perspective, those individuals make an agreement that they're focusing on purpose and the customer at the center of all of those conversations. So being mindful that this comes from a manufacturing kind of space, the workspace looks at, is it logically placed as a physical room? But also, does it have practical data that shows the flow of work? And when we're thinking about the content, it's the visual data, so your charts and dashboards and those sorts of things that are easily accessed and updated. And the purpose is to bring people closer to the product or service via this data. So in lockdown, some organisations that had obeyers actually moved them onto Excel because they couldn't access the rooms. And they learned that actually probably not the best when you've got lots and lots of users trying to get into that spreadsheet at the same time. We now have software that you can look into that creates a virtual room tour. So similar if you've moved house or looking to move house and you're wanting to do a room tour on those sorts of websites. And that's less temperamental. So when I was an operational supervisor, I actually didn't have an obeyer because I could not secure a meeting room, but I did have a visual management wall. So it had all of our charts around our service level agreements, and it helped around the transparency of the conversations when it comes to quality, particularly where we may have missed an SLA, for example. So sticking with methodology, you may want to leverage a methodology that already exists in the organization. So as people team looking at IT and finance, again, to help with that language. So we're speaking the same language about our ways of working is going to help. And within Scrum, we're delivering regular batches of value across a short cycle. So I adopted the role of Scrum Master in my team, so running events such as daily stand-up, reviews, demos, and retrospectives for our L&D projects. One of the other things that we also used, which can be scaled up for broader business agility as well, is a Kanban board. So we effectively were using Scrumban, if that's the language that you like to use. And this was helping us to visualize our work and our processes. It helped with transparency, psychological safety, and communication, as well as efficiency. And from my perspective, it's my belief, unless something is strictly confidential, we should be operating in full transparency. So my stakeholders had view of the board whenever I was having meetings and so on, so that they could see why certain things were prioritized over other things and so on. Another element of methodology within the kind of Agile umbrella you may want to look at is Lean. Now, I'm not saying anyone should run off and get a black belt in Lean, but what I am saying is that we need to consider what are our detractors from value and what are adding value. So we need to ensure that we're thinking about what enables our outcomes to be delivered. And within that, you may also need to look at root causes and do some work around that to ensure that you're solving the right problems and not just surface level elements. So your 5 whys, for example, to get to that root cause. I also have outlined the wastes of Lean. There were 7 back when I was first looking at it. There are 8 now. And you can see that underutilized talent is the new addition there, or newer addition. And the reason for that is because we are asking people to be multi-skilled. We're saying that you need to become shaped. We're saying that you need to skill stack. But if people aren't actually able to utilize those skills in the organization, it's a waste for them and a waste for the organization. So I did have a breather break in here, just mindful of the time. Do we want to keep going?
Yeah, we can go
Bearing in
ahead.
mind that. Cool, okay. Okay, so, and that was a good segue into the talent section. So when it comes to talent acquisition and development, I kind of squidged them together because I think they ultimately work very well together. And teams should be working very closely together in organizations within this regard. So we're talking about building agile teams and hiring people with the right sets of skills, not just for the team that they're actually joining, but the department and the wider business. I mentioned earlier that people are expected to be comb-shaped, or we would hope that they are comb-shaped, so that they have breadth and depth of skill in a variety of different areas, also ones that are complementary. And we don't want to box them in when they join the business. We want them to be able to develop complementary skills with our organization so that they can then flex around different projects, both servicing their own needs and interests as well as the business. So we're providing them the meaning, the mastery, and hopefully the motivation to help continuously improve the organization. So the next element here is continuous learning. And I know it's something that comes up all the time. And of course, it's a really big part of business agility and agile as a culture. One of the things I also wanted to include is it's not just about bringing learning into the flow of work, but it's flowing it back as well. So I read a book called Sooner, Safer, Happier by Jonathan Smart. And in chapter 8 of the book, he covers lots around learning, and he identifies nested learning loops. So this is where we need to unlock learning that already exists, but may not be recognized as such. So this is where you receive feedback, reflect on that feedback, and then make a change. So some of these activities include stand-ups, sprint reviews, one-to-ones, quarterly reviews, and OKRs. So we do need to have a bit of a change in mindset to recognise that and better leverage these opportunities. And just thinking back to the first slide as well on process, providing people the space to think is really important around this. So the final element on this section is adaptability. So within that, you've got other skills that kind of sit adjacent and underneath. So your problem solving, your communication, your seeking feedback, etc. And we know that this is important because it's a recurring skill that appears on all your World Economic kind of Forum lists, 2025, 2030, etc. As people, we need to provide opportunities for social learning, so bringing people together, and peer learning, where they can learn from each other, that is directly applicable to the work that needs to be delivered. And we'll kind of speak on some of this as we go through, but as an example, design thinking sprints are an opportunity to develop those kind of skill sets. And I've linked just at the bottom there the video to the design thinking in HR session that Jeet Mukherjee of Kinfolk did for us, and that's up on the Agile People Ops YouTube channel as well. So moving into performance management, and the three letters that may put dread into many. So OKRs. So a quick overview, these are aligned goals across the business up and down that are linked to organizational purpose and strategic priorities. Now, I've seen them work well, I've seen them not work very well. You need psychological safety for these to work. The goals are transparent, and if you can't see them, you can't align. So when Google first introduced OKRs to their organization, they had your name listed, your goal, and your phone number. So this was to ensure that people were actually talking about their goals so that they could properly align them to each other. And everyone is working towards their individual goals, of course, but that's to the collective success of the organization. So a team that may have a shared goal is the business performance collaboration team. So IT, HR, and finance might actually have a goal where they're looking at a shared goal for strategic outcomes. If you want a deeper dive into OKRs, again, I've linked some of the videos from Agile People Ops. We had a great session by Kate Madison Greenwell, who did a session for us for the UK community not long ago. And sticking with performance management, again, I think as people, we've probably heard this time and time again, but regular feedback over annual reviews. So looking at that kind of coaching approach that clarifies the requirements and empowers individuals. There's a variety of different coaching techniques that are out there. If you are interested in lean specifically, I recently saw Kata coaching, so that's Kata coaching, which uses the plan, do, check, act framework for goal attainment. So we know that there's a real shift for the coaching conversation because we know one and done or a half-year check-in on goals and performance just isn't enough. One of the things that I was doing with my own team, I asked them, what cadence would you like to have conversations? So they said weekly, one said bi-weekly, and I kind of set an agenda, but it was completely open around that. We looked at well-being, looked at their wins, the challenges that they faced, the feedback that I received, the feedback they need to give to me on my performance, and development as well. And we would have a coaching conversation, so asking lots of open questions to the individuals and feeding that then into any formal kind of annual or biannual reviews. And we can have very similar conversations as well with our line managers when we're having those check-ins and discussions. We also want to make sure that we're leveraging those frequent feedback loops, which often overlap with those nested learning loops as well. So we're moving into culture. Much of what we have already discussed feeds into Agile culture, so learning, experimentation, personalization that comes from being more evidence-based. But I'm going to zero in on two specific things. Before I get into leadership development, I just want to caveat. So within the world of Agile, most people would not want to purport like hierarchy. So we talk about teams of teams, we talk about networks, we say the highest paid person's opinion, so HIPPO isn't the be all and end all. However, if you are lucky enough to be bestowed the title of leader, there are some real expectations that come with that. And Linda Holbeach writes in Agile Organizations, Agile leaders must be able to lead in complexity, be a relationship/network builder, culture developer, change manager, talent developer, and enabler of shared leadership. So that's not a lot. That's a lot of expectation on managers, but particularly managers in Agile organizations. And with that being said, we need to create and develop adaptive leaders who demonstrate inspiring servant leadership. Now, I'm not saying they only work with servant leadership, but they're able to pull out the different kind of tooling within management and leadership. We also want to ensure that these leaders identify, cultivate, and enhance potential, set aside their own egos to develop those individuals, and hold their hands up when it comes to their own actions and role model the culturally aligned behaviours that they wish to see, because they want the followership. So we need to see those behaviours that people are going to aspire to. So the next element here is collaboration and creative problem solving, and I'm hoping that this has been a bit of a thread as we've gone through the presentation. So here we're looking at facilitating opportunities for cross-functional collaboration and problem solving. So we see in the tech space, they have hackathons, you may do design thinking sprints. In the games industry, they do games jams. It's all about empowering people and bringing them together to take charge of their own challenges and share those ideas. And I had a conversation with a consultant not long ago who was working for a cancer support charity who decided to use open strategy. So this is an approach popularized by Nokia to develop their business strategy for the whole year. And this was done via crowdsourcing. So they're creating cross-functional project teams. They introduced coaches for around 3 months, and then they brought everyone together to discuss each segment and knit that strategy together. And they found that there was massive buy-in because everybody had worked on it together, so they had a sense of ownership, and they just wanted to live the strategy and felt really proud about it. So it's a great example of how you can leverage the collective intelligence of an organization, give people ownership, and then empower them to solve their challenges together. Are we okay to go on, or do you want to take a minute? Are there any questions or anything like that?
Yeah, I see a question in the chat box from Kaveri. Is there a difference between Ubeya and design thinking?
Yes, so Obaya is specifically around your business strategy, whereas design thinking, you can take a hypothesis, you can take a particular challenge. You could also apply it to your business strategy, but you'd have to break it down into specific segments. But yeah, the Obeya is a specific, historically, a room that has your entire business strategy on it once it's been completed, and it is reviewed on a regular basis. I hope that helps. Are there any other questions before we move on?
None at the moment.
Excellent. Okay, I'll keep going. So we're into measuring business agility. So this resource, I think, is absolutely amazing. It comes from the Agile Business Consortium, and I have linked it for you at the bottom when you get your slides. So it is part of the Business Agility Toolkit that covers leadership, collaboration, and culture. And you can use this as a benchmarking tool for your organization and then review on a regular basis as well. So you'll see that the levels run along the side here. We have surviving, stabilizing, secure, thriving, and transformational. And then along the top, we've got these kind of three buckets here. So we've got purpose and results, agile leadership, well-being and fulfillment, collaboration and autonomy, trust and transparency, which is great. I love that they're together because that's your psychological safety right there. And then you've got ability to change and innovation and learning. Again, another couple that I love that is together. And the reason I really do like this is because, well, change influences what we learn. They're a catalyst for each other, right? More you learn, more you change, more you change, more you learn. And it just makes the most sense that these two things would come together. And we're seeing this reflected in the job market a little bit, not massively in the UK. So one of the roles that I saw, I think last year, was from Yorkshire Water, so a utility company. And they had organisational effectiveness practitioners who sat straddling these two areas here. And more recently, Lloyds Bank were hiring for learning and change designers. So we're definitely seeing, particularly where you've got organisations that are pushing the envelope when it comes to business agility, that they're looking at changing their roles to better reflect that. But back to the matrix. So on each segment, it has an outcome or a hypothesis, if you will, which can help you create an action plan. And if you leverage anecdotal, quantitative, and qualitative data around this, you can create an evidence-based approach to moving up through the levels. So what I mean by that is, let's take agile leadership as an example. So how do we know that our leaders are working in crisis mode? Well, we might want to look at the engagement surveys. We may want to have some observations. We may want to have one-on-one discussions with people and check in and start pulling together that data. It may be that you've seen there's indecision, poor communication, siloed or blinkered approach. And you would look to put in mechanisms to support and address those challenges to move into the next space. And you would continue to do that until you get to your transformational level. Now, I wouldn't suggest doing the whole matrix at once. Nothing in Agile is ever really done in that way anyway. So you may want to take it team by team, and you may want to take it team by theme, if that makes sense. So we're into the case study. I didn't have to look too far for this because the University of Leeds is literally 25 minutes down the road. But I'll be honest, I did not leave my house. But when we're looking at business agility in practice, the University of Leeds created its own transformation office. And this was, I believe, in direct response to the pandemic. And they wanted to create more structure and governance to their change in digital transformation projects that were driving business agility. They put at the center of everything that they were doing the faculty, so the people working for the university, and the students. And they kicked off all of their projects by asking, how will people experience this? Focusing on the outcomes. So not the tick box exercises, but the actual, what's the behavior change as an example. In addition to those elements, they've added a continuous improvement team. There's a head of HR and people change. They have change partners, and they have a business performance team. So again, finance, IT, and HR working together, and all of their people roles have an element of change management. So it's a really interesting organization to look at and seeing how they have restructured themselves to focus on driving business agility across the whole business. So I know not every organization is going to be in a position to do this, but thinking about tracking our value, how can we better center our people, how can we leverage some of these feedback loops, particularly looking at our end customers, like how the university is drawing in the students there. This is going to help have a number of different kind of conversations with lots and lots of different people across the business. So it doesn't just sit with HR, and it becomes an organizational wide conversation, because it is everybody's responsibility and everyone has a part to play within this. So we're coming to the sort of home stretch now. I just wanted to see if there was a main takeaway before I do the wrap up. So does anyone have any questions? Is there anything that you're going to apply in your workplace? Is there something that could trigger a conversation about business agility that you think, oh, actually, I'm going to speak to someone about that? No, nothing in the chat boxes yet. Okie dokie, so I'll keep going. So some quick tips for success then, and these are both micro and macro when it comes to agile ways of working and that sort of scaled up business agility. So first and foremost, iterative delivery. We know that transformation is continuous. The bigger the change, the harsher the curve, and the longer it's going to take for people to embrace. So we need to do small T transformation, so a continuous and incremental approach, so it's easy for people to absorb. Thinking about that lean lens, so prioritizing what adds the most value, and then also making sure that we're delivering change solutions with the business and not coming to them with something already packaged, for example. We want to visualize everything. So using the tool like the Obeya as an opportunity to visualize your strategy. You could also do design thinking as an option, as we had sort of discussed with that question. And these things enable more collaboration and ultimately more buy-in as well. And doing your regular review. So utilizing your business data and I would definitely recommend checking out the Culture Matrix from Agile Business Consortium. So in terms of resources, you may want to check out the Design Thinking Playbook and Toolkit. There's loads of activities and workshops that you can take from that and deliver that with your teams. And those books actually follow the whole process of each stage of design thinking. There's a number of different activities to do. If you want to take a strength-based approach to problem solving, you may want to look at appreciative inquiry, which is very similar. And so some of the resources that I've mentioned today, so Sooner, Safer, Happier by Jonathan Smart, Purpose-Driven People also helped inform this, which is a book written by Elise Hofmeister, and The Agile Organizations by Linda Holbisch. And before I let you go, there's a little freebie if you would like it. So there is a Blinkist book club that we've put together. There's over 30 books in there. I've listed a couple of the titles. So it's 20 minutes. You can listen or you can read along. Very good if you've got some CPD that you need to kind of tick off for the year or whatever it may be. Or you might want to review a book and then see whether or not you want to buy the full book version. So thank you so much. And I will hand back to Mariana.
Hey, Roxanne, we have a question. The question is from Kaveri. What are the challenges that one can encounter to bring the three dragons together?
That's an interesting question. From my experience, I think sometimes we have a little bit of tribalism, and we sort of need to get over that, if I'm being quite honest. And it may be that you don't start the conversation from. I think it's more about building the bonds outside of the kind of professional side of things and making sure that you're able to build a real relationship between between IT, HR, and finance. So that may be a good start. So thinking about it from a people perspective, a human perspective first, and then looking at, okay, maybe I can bring this person into a project that I'm working on. Maybe I can seek some advice and build out the relationship that way, and you can start working together more closely.
Thank you, Roxanne. Do we have any other questions from the audience?
I can't see any. Well, if there are no other questions at the moment, please do reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to have a chat. And answer any questions that may come up at a later date.
Okay, then. So while we wait for the questions, if there are, we will move ahead. Firstly, I would like to thank you, Roxanne, for this wonderful session. It was really insightful. Thank you for talking about the knowledge on unleashing business agility and how HR can foster enhanced performance. Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
I would also like to thank everyone from the audience for joining us today. We appreciate your time and participation, and we hope that you found today's session very informative and engaging. You will all receive a feedback form link in the chat box, but request you all to share your feedback. So what next? You can join our APO Global Community and UK Community LinkedIn groups to get further updates on upcoming events. Kindly scan the QR code below or join using the link shared in the chat box. You can also stay tuned for more information on our upcoming UK events. Additionally, join our community platform to collaborate and engage with other passionate individuals. You can join using the link shared in the chat box. We will share this recording of the session with all the participants who have registered and upload it to our Agile People Ops YouTube channel. Thank you all once again. Have a wonderful day ahead with lots of gratitude. I'm Mariana, your host, who will be signing off for today. Thank you all.